Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Years ago, I was at it was a chamber function. It was some sort of networking event. Somebody handed me their card, which, that's what happens at chamber functions or trade associations. Anyhow, name on the card doesn't matter, but his title was Executive Vice President. I'm like, ooh, Executive Vice President. Okay, wow. So I started asking questions, and how big's your company, so on and so forth. How many employees, who's the president, and I didn't mean to embarrass the person, but it came out rather quickly that he was the executive vice president of a team of one. It was just something he put on his card, and I understand what he was doing. He's trying to kind of make his position look bigger than it is, and you know what? Kudos to him. You got to do what you got to do, and I'm not disparaging that at all. But I kind of use that as a jumping off point to just the whole notion that, okay, he's kind of positioned himself as a leader, but he's leading no one. And again, I don't have a problem with any of that. But what I want to underscore is the notion that if you're a leader, that really means you have followers. And if you have followers, then you have to have relationships. And I've said this time and again, that you see the really good people out there, people who are great leaders, they've got great networks. Mm-hmm. And you see the people who have great networks and they're good leaders. And those things just go hand in hand. And so today I've got a guest on, one of my many, many guests, Tracy Meyer. And Tracy, she's the author of a book called The Leadership Contradiction, Choosing a Path of Love and Kindness, which, love, kindness ties right into relationships, and she has quite an experience helping people leverage the strength of human connections. And she unapologetically believes that people don't need to be treated fairly; they need to be treated as unique individuals. Which I love that. I always told my kids, right? It'll never, ever, ever, ever be totally fair.
Yeah.
Right? It'll never totally be. I can't make it totally fair.
Yeah.
You're different ages, different experiences. But I will be fair to you. Right? I mean, so anyhow, Tracy, welcome to the program.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Frank. I already am so excited about your story, and I have so many things I want to talk about from that as well. So thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, jump in. I don't know what you think about that. I mean, you've got this great book, and it's all, it is all about relationships.
Yes.
And I tell people that God gave us one brain. I mean, I'm not getting religious here, but God gave us one brain. There's not a special compartment for business, right? Oh, my business brain. No, it's one brain. Oh. Mm-hmm. And it sees trust the same way. It sees betrayal the same way. And so, I mean, when you start talking about love and kindness, it's like, man, that's, those are so important. So
anyhow.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you for the lead in, and I'll just start wherever God wants me to start. There are, and I'm not getting religious either, but I feel like there's something out there that someone needs to hear, and so I'll start with this leadership. You were talking about a leader has people that they lead. Or a leader has followers, I guess, is really the way that you said
Sure.
it. And one of the things that comes to mind, and I do talk about this in my book as well, and that's the idea behind the leadership contradiction. I believe that there are leaders out there that just qualify themselves from being a leader because the people that they lead feel disrespected. They feel shunned upon. They feel not connected to their to the person who is quote unquote their leader. So those are the people I put in the box that are the bosses, the bosses or the managers or what have you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put this little spin on it that not all leaders have followers, because they don't know how to lead.
Interesting.
I used to say, there was this story, and I won't bring up names either, years ago where I was, competing for a particular position in a leadership role, and the person that had the biggest ego and the biggest exposure thought that was going to be the person to get the position, but instead it was me, and somebody said, it's because people want to follow you, Tracy.
Mm,
They don't want to follow that person. They may have 20 years more experience than you. They may have, XYZ, but it's that different. It's that human connection. It's that feeling that you care about them. And that when you, look left and you start walking, you know that there's people behind you. And so I've always thought of that. And like when I'm like out and about near a park and I see like a mom, a duck with the baby ducks following, I think of leadership that same way. And again, leadership that's not just in corporate America, but leadership that's at our, in our communities, in our, you know, in our families, so on and so forth. To be a true leader is to really care about the people that you want to follow you. And so yeah, that's what the leadership contradiction is. It's my call out to say, what people, there's a lot of people out there that don't qualify for leadership, even though they have that title. So to part of your story, Frank, there's people out there that do have 100 or 200 people that they are in charge of, but that still does not make them a leader. They may have the
yeah.
title and they still don't have that, because they haven't earned it. And this day and age, those are the people who are silent quitters. Those are the people who are leaving their jobs and quitting their bosses, not quitting the company. And I know we have a long way to go, but I really felt like, after 40 years in leadership myself, that it was time for me to kind of reflect back. And the reflection happened during, some time that was given to me during COVID, where I had a lot of alone time, and I was furloughed from my job, not expecting it at all. Not because I wasn't doing a great job, but because the clients went away. Everybody was trying to figure out what was going on. But yeah, so a lot of that book is on the reflection of things that I've thought about, in my career, particularly not treating people fairly. All of that leads back to that same road. Like if you really want to be a great leader, at home, at your church, at your nonprofit community area, whatever, your group of friends, then look at every person in the eye that you meet on a daily basis. When you ask them how they are, actually stop and listen to what they're saying. Don't think of what you're going to say next or tell them how you are, but really care about that person in front of you. Because it could change their life and it might just change yours too.
Yeah, it's a flood of memories come back to me as you're talking because I had a brief corporate existence and I had bosses that um, I would walk through the fires of hell for, and others
Mhm.
that I just, but for a car payment, rent payment, and student loan
Right,
payment, I would have walked away from.
right,
And that was the only, and I think in their mind, it's like, well, I'm a leader. This guy's sticking around and I can do these things. And it's like, no, I'm kind of tethered to you because of circumstances. And,
right.
um, but yeah, I remember one situation where I was asked to do a project, and it was going to be going late on into the night, and the person gave me the project and they promptly left. Um, and there was another higher up at the firm, and he kind of saw what happened and he said, I'm not leaving till you're done. Now, I didn't
Mm,
report to him. It wasn't his project, right?
right.
But it was just like that just spoke volumes to me. It's like, I'm not leaving till you're done. How can I help? This has got to be
Wow.
your work and you've got to do it. I'm not going to do it for you. I have other things, but I'm going to be here shoulder to shoulder toiling on my stuff. And um, I think that inspired me to probably work a little harder, knowing because I was
Hmm.
holding him up from his family. But
Hmm.
I just remembered that, and
Oh my gosh.
you
And I
know,
love that story because you do remember it, and I'm not sure how long ago it was, but I tell of a story of that in my book as well. I was managing a particular venue, fairly large venue, down in Southern California. And yeah, we went from we hosted the state bar, so very technical, a lot of electricity. It was still the time when some people would actually take it by hand and others would do it on their laptop. But anyways, very specific setup, and it was turning overnight into a completely different scenario with carpet and et cetera, et cetera. So we actually met, I was the general manager. We met at 2 o'clock in the morning at the venue and broke down, you know, miles of electricity and surge protectors and stuff. And I remember thinking, um, not only at the beginning when they saw me there, but at the end of that night when we were absolutely, dirty from the tape and just cleaning stuff up. And I was holding the biggest roll of tape that we had taken off the floor. There was so much excitement and love. I'll say that word, love, amongst our employees and between me as a leader and my employees, because I wasn't there as a leader. I was there as part of the team. And yeah, I never forgot that either. And, it's got a couple of paragraphs in my book too of 40 years of remembering some of the things that stand out for me. And that stands out for me too, Frank, because I didn't forget it as a leader either, because I know that several employees thanked me for being there, and they didn't need to. But I guess what it goes to show, as you and I are both pointing out, um, that's the difference. That's not, what people are used to is
yeah,
you're showing up for their employees.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, in my book, Foundational Networking, which you have a copy of, I use the phrase in there, become the person you want to network with,
Ooh,
right?
I like that.
And it really translates to leadership as well. Become the
Hmm.
leader you would want to follow.
Yeah.
Um, and because in reality, we're all leaders, right? I mean, you
Mm,
have a son. He's grown at this point. I think you
right.
have a son, right? I got that
Yes, I
right?
do.
Okay.
Yes. And a
Uh,
grandbaby.
yeah, and a grandbaby, yeah. um, and you know, even if you didn't lead anybody else when you went home, you led that. So we all
Right.
lead somebody. It's unless you're two.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
Absolutely. And I like what you shared about that too, about the networking and and I also look at being the best that we could be, even for that one person we were to meet at a networking. I had someone I coached recently who was a new salesperson and fairly young, and started talking to him about networking and connecting. And his mind and the impression he had gotten was, you got to go, you got to take like 500 business cards, you got to, like, as fast as you can exchange as many, and when you get back to work the next day, the boss is going to ask you, how many people did you meet? How many business cards? And I'm like, oh, no, 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 not at all. I said, I would like to see you meet 5 people, but if you meet one person that you have a conversation with, and that person would know you at the grocery store the next day if they saw you, because it was a memorable conversation, that means that was a successful evening.
yeah, I
And,
love that.
he's like, Tracy, there was like 100 and something people there. And I'm like, I know that. And I knew that before I told you to go there.
Yeah,
But all I really want is, I want to hear about that one conversation you had, that may or may not result in business, but it will result in a connection with that person. And it may take 2 years or 5 years, but you're going to come back across them again. And chances are they'd be inclined to recommend you to someone else because you took the time to get to know them.
yeah. No, it's
And
I love that. I had a gentleman on the podcast several years ago.
mhm.
Paul Banks, his name. He's over in the UK, and his company services, not his company, the company he worked for serviced call centers, right? Giant call
Right.
centers, 100 people making calls, and so they would provide software and training and stuff and whatnot for these call services. And so he was of the very same mind you are, right? I'm going to go to an event and I'm going to go deep and not go shallow with lots of people. And
Yeah.
his boss sat him down and he said, Paul, enough of this. Enough of doing it your way. Because he explained to his boss, well,
Right.
I only talked to 5 people. No, you do it my way. It's a shotgun approach. We're just going to, just to hit everybody.
Right.
Like, all right, which is, it leaves a pit in your stomach because you just know it's not even if you don't know the right way, it's just not a good feeling, right?
Right.
And so 2 weeks go by and a call center calls a leader of a call center calls and engages the firm. And it comes back to the boss that Paul was responsible for this. And so he
Wow.
goes, sits down with Paul and says, hey, this is great. You know, how did this all happen? And he said, well, it happened the way I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I really got to know this person and I helped them in ways beyond what we do and made some introductions and so on and so forth. And the boss was like, okay, scrap my way, go back to your way.
I
um,
love it. I
yeah,
love it. And it is true, and I think it's still true. And I know a lot of people exchange business cards electronically now, and I'm not a huge fan of it, but people want to do it that way, great.
yeah,
But I also like that if you do exchange a few business cards, it's the ones that you pull out of your pocket the next morning that you go, oh yeah, I need to follow up with them. And
yeah,
and you could remember the conversation about it. And yeah, it's a lost art, and we're seeing, the rebound and our kind of rejuvenation of networking. And I do hope people take the time, and I am seeing that, and approaching it with a little bit more love and kindness, a little bit more of, this person has a life. They have potentially, a family. And I think particularly the younger generation are looking at the job as a job, but it's not my whole life. Like
yeah,
I don't live to work. I work to live. And
yeah,
and it's a pleasure to be at this place in my career, having been in leadership for 40 years. And thank you, Frank. I know I don't look that old, but yeah. My my
you,
my
you,
kids keep me young now, and a pretty healthy living, traveling, as you know I do. But I love that I'm seeing this come around again, and I feel like I can talk to Gen Z and the younger Gen X and say, I get you. And I'm so proud of you guys for looking at your work as part of your life. It's not your whole life. And we can be just as successful treating people kindly in every aspect of our life, and so showing up authentically. I know that you mentioned something at the very beginning as well of our conversation. We don't need to be different people at different places. We should show up at work the same way
yeah,
we show up at home and with our friends. And one, it's less complicated, and two, we get to be part of the human experiment,
yeah,
and not just paying the paycheck, but there's some bigger purposes for all of us here, and I don't care what you believe in. There are bigger reasons for us to be here on this planet. So we'll
yeah.
see. Yeah.
Um, I'm in your book, The Leadership Contradiction, and chapter jumps out at me. Love is not a 4-letter word.
Ah,
You comment
yeah,
on that for me?
I would love to. I know, and I didn't realize I would be quoted so much and such. But I'll tell you, the reason that I wanted it to say that is because having been in the workplace for several decades,
Hmm.
um, there's been that time where things kind of got out of control, where a lot of people were in trouble for misbehaving at work. There's so many stories tied to that, but I'm going to keep it simple and say that we started putting not just love, but kindness and friendship and communication and connection all out of the workplace under the guise that if you get too close to someone or touch someone on the shoulder, you're going to be sued for sexual harassment. And it's a shame that we got so far away from being kind to one another. Because I think about it, if you went on my website, there was a little teaser. We did a video teaser for my book a couple months before it came out. And the very ending, which I struggled with at first, was exactly what I wanted, which is two young women at an office, and one has apparently come back from vacation or something, and they just run up and hug each other. And I think of that and think of some of the people I've worked with as a colleague, whatever positions. And I think of, what, that you learn to love that person as a human being. And so when I say love is not a 4-letter word, it means it's not dirty or nasty, and it shouldn't be, oh, it's a bad word.
Yeah.
Love is about human kindness, human connection. It's just about caring for the people that you work with. And so that's what that's about.
Let's shift gears here for a minute. Tell
Okay.
us about your business. I really appreciate you being on. Tell us about your business and how how the audience can support you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a certified executive coach through UC Berkeley, also Edgewalkers International. I'm also certified to facilitate the archetypes of change, and finishing up my International Coaching Federation. So not only do I have 40 years of experience in leadership, but I have the credentials to show for it. But my favorite thing is private one-on-one leadership coaching, and also hybrid training where I coach your team so that I could find out what are the issues, what's keeping them from bridging themselves and connecting so that they can make your company a maximum success. So if you want to reach out to me, you can find my book, you could find a 30-minute free chat with me, all of those things on my website, which is Tracy, TRAYCEE, at BEYOUleadership.com, BEYOU leadership.com. Love to hear from you.
I really appreciate you being on with us today.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.